Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Culture Corner, where I sit down with some of the best artists from Texas and see where their minds are taking them creatively. Once again, I'm your host, Terry Perez, and with me today is Dr. Marco Cervantes. Hi, Doctor, Professor.
Hello. How you doing?
Yes. He is, Doctor. If you don't know Dr. Cervantes, he is an educator, but along with that, he is a hip hop artist, music producer, and a DJ. As a musician, he performs under the name MexStep. He's done some solo work. He's performed with the hip hop group Third Root, and as an educator as well, because that is definitely an important factor in his life, he is an associate professor at University of Texas San Antonio, where he teaches, like a lot of his studies include the intersection of political and racial forces, which I think like a lot of your music is like that too. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And I guess just to start things off, like, because I really like your hip hop name, MexStep. Where did that come from? Like, MexStep.
Well, MexStep is a shortened version of Mexican Step Grandfather. That was a DJ name that I used whenever I started DJing in San Antonio. I did that kind of in the late 2000s for a couple years. I had a weekly at a place called Voodoo Lounge, and I used the name Mexican Step Grandfather. I was actually using a variety of names, but Mexican Step Grandfather was just one of the names that I used, that I took from a short story that I was working on, talking about broken lineage between Mexican-American families, talking about my own connection to Mexico, different relatives and my Mexican step-grandfather, and just kind of just doing some evaluation and some interrogation of my own identity. So I decided to use that as my DJ name before the short story even got finished. And I had a lot of luck with that in terms of getting media coverage, so I just stuck with it. Like the first year that I used Mexican Step Grandfather, was getting all this press. I got Band of the Year the first time I used it. Even though I wasn't a band, I was a DJ. So I started using that name. And as I started doing more shows, the name just got too long to put on flyers with a bunch of other bands and stuff. And it was just easier to just say the shortened version, MexStep. People were already calling me that, so I just shifted it to that, and that's where it's at right now. But I think it's cool because it can also mean like taking that step to the mix.
Did that short story ever get published?
No, I'm still working on it. Yeah, still working on that thing. But a lot of music came out of that name, so I'm mad at it.
It really has. Like even before I had mentioned it earlier, before this interview, I was listening to both of your albums. I know is Resistir and Vivir. I think if I had to pick a favorite, it's definitely Resistir, only because like how you kind of really blended not only hip hop but a little bit of Tejano in it, which I really liked. And I don't know why, like me, especially because I'm a little bit of a musical nerd. It kind of made me think a little bit of Lin-Manuel Miranda, not because it sounds like that, but I think it's because you both have like similar themes to your music, like him as well as you. Like there's political themes, cultural identity, and then as well as like there's of course the Latino elements to it and everything. So I guess this leads to my other question, which I will admit it's a little basic, but I gotta know, who are your influences when it comes to music?
Influences, if we're talking to hip hop, which I grew up, like by the time I was in middle school, I was rapping and writing. So a lot of my influences musically were the hip hop artists that were saying a message, that had a message at the time. KRS-One, X-Clan, Poor Righteous Teachers, Big Daddy Kane. So I was like really into early East Coast, or I would say late 80s East Coast at the time, when just like listening to those writers. Really being influenced by them. And there was something about the way that they talk about identity, race, culture, that made me feel a sense of pride. It made me feel like I needed to go do some research on my own culture, identity, history. So those would be some of the names of the early influences, but like they really go across the board. Like, you know, I was a big Jimi Hendrix fan, even though I wasn't around during his time, but just something about the way that he performed, just the way that he was able to have messages as well as just some amazing music. War, God, there's just so many. Rage Against the Machine, of course, Public Enemy,
gosh,
you know. Music that has a message generally has been a big influence on Bob Dylan. There's just so many. The Roots, I could go on and on, just so many influences. And then not just in hip hop, like all genres, I feel like.
Yeah, I was going to say Rage Against the Machine. They're not exactly hip hop. They're more like on the rock or metal side, which, but they're also like, they're very like political. They really want to always like say something about society with your message. Same as you and everything. And Yeah, like would you say like a lot of those like influences, they're like also like good recommendations for anyone who wants to, you know, really have their music have it like a strong message about
I
like
think so. Yeah,
yeah.
definitely listen to Public Enemy, KRS One in
Mhm.
terms of the hip hop thing. Gil Scott Heron in terms of poetry. I think that he's just been um, so amazing in terms of the impact that he's had and been so influential.
Uh-huh.
God, just so many artists. I mean, even today, if you're talking about J. Cole and Kendrick Lamar, like these are lyricists that I think one should take a look at if they want to, you know, sort of connect the politics and history with the music.
Yeah. And then like going back to like Resistir with your music, I think like the two that really stood out for me was Tejano Summer, mostly because like the synth part, it like it
Yeah.
made me think of like the horns or like the trumpets you'd hear like in a Tejano song or even like a mariachi song and everything. And then there was the other one, it was Mil Horas, which I
Oh,
really
yeah.
liked too. They were
Yeah.
very, I don't know, they were just so different from a lot of hip hop songs I've heard, even like from you know, artists who are Latinx and anything. Like, what was like? Why did you feel like it was important to like mix those two genres specifically, especially because they're like two very different genres as well?
Yeah, I wanted the music that I did on Resistir as well as Vivir as well. But Resistir is a bit different because I did the co-production on that one. So I did a lot of the skeleton beats, and I wanted the music to reflect my own upbringing, you know, just my history. I wanted to speak to who I was, and I was hoping that maybe it could connect with other people. And of course, Tejano and Cumbia, a big part of me growing up. You know, I listened to hip hop, that was like my favorite music, but growing up, you know, in a Mexican-American family, Chicano family, just couldn't get away from the Tejano and the Cumbia. So I felt it was important that that would be part of the musical sort of skeleton that I was working with. Also, I was DJing again previously, so I had really collected a lot of loops, Tejano loops, Cumbia loops that I had in my head that I would, you know, just kind of, I put them in a folder and I figured I would sample them later. And Tejano Summer, as well as Mil Horas, those two came from that sort of folder of loops. And I expanded that into a song. And Tejano Summer, that was one of those songs that just came along really quickly. Like I had that loop, that synth. I mean, there's something beautiful about those old Tejano synths. And I love the sample. I added some drums to it, and then the lyrics, I wanted to make sure that I did speak to my history growing up, you know, celebrating with the Hano families. I wanted to give it a feel of like you're at a quinceañera or a wedding or at a barbecue, and it's just been a really great song to play. I actually just played it at my aunt's birthday party a couple weeks ago. It was requested, and it's just one of those songs that I can play with the family. We can turn up the music, eat, and just celebrate. And yeah, it was just a lot of fun putting together. I got the help of Adrian Quesada from Black Pumas to help out with the production. So on that song as well as the album, he co-produced that album. So he gave me a little bit of help on those two tracks, Mil Horas as well with the cumbia, and I wanted to address some of the issues surrounding the U.S.-Mexico border and you know some of the realities and injustices as well as you know some of the ideas for the future. So I thought it was important to have music that I grew up with as part of that, you know, that production. I think that's one of the beautiful things about hip hop is that beats, samples, they come from an array of genres, not just, you know, funk and soul. I mean, I don't think there's such a thing as a specific hip hop bass line or hip hop drum beat. I mean, all these drum beats and bass lines, melodies, rhythms, they all come from different genres, different influences. So I felt like it would just, you know, make sense that I would pull from Tejano. Given that I don't think a lot of people have sampled Tejano
They
music.
haven't, no, which I think is really cool. And yeah, it does really sound like music you'd hear like at a quinceañera or like a family reunion. Like just hearing it, I was like, oh my God, I feel like this sounds a little bit like cumbia. Like I would probably dance to this at like a wedding I went to.
Yeah,
and everything.
yeah, that was the idea. So thank you. Yeah, I'm glad that you put it that way.
And do you think like your roots or even like just the south side of like San Antonio and Tex-Mex, I guess, like would you say that's like always going to be like a big influence in your music, even if like the topic of the song isn't really necessarily about that?
I think so,
Yeah.
because it gives me first it gives me some limitations, and I think limitations are good if you're creating art, because I think if you're just pulling from everything and you have too many choices, then that can kind of slow you down because it just becomes overwhelming. I can just pull from anything. But I think it'll also reflect my history, and I think that that's important to make the music connect to my own identity, the things that I've been through, the music that I grew up hearing. And luckily, if we're talking about Chicano music, Mexican American music, there's so many genres that inform the music. I mean, if we're talking about Tejano, funk, soul, disco, R&B has influenced Tejano music, orquesta, rancheras, all of that has been incorporated in Tejano music. So it kind of, you know, it's similar in a lot of ways to sort of variations of music in hip hop. So I don't really run out of different styles of music to sample from, but I do try to keep in mind that I'd like to keep that connection, that I'd like to have these questions that you asked, that, oh, you know, were you connecting that Tejano music to this beat because of, you know, your background? I just think it's one also, I mean, it's another thing is that it's also paying respect to artists that came before me, paying respect to some of these Chicano soul artists, which is something I've been doing here more lately is just digging into Chicano soul and working out some of those old beats, replaying them, and looking at the future as having a lot more Chicano soul type music, as well as, you know, other forms of music as well. But yeah, I'd like to keep that connection. I just think it offers a better representation of who I am when I keep it that way.
That's a good way to put it. And how would you describe, like, I guess, like, that would probably go into it. Like, how would you describe, like, your creative process? Because you did mention, like, limitations are good. Like, do you think that also goes with, like, when you're, like, being, like, working on, like, music and everything?
I think so. Like, giving myself limitations to where, you know, if I have a sample or I'm coming up with a bass line, keep that bass line, move to the drum beat, then move to the melody, then move to the rhythm, and then just keep it like that. And if it's not moving me, then just keep moving on to the next one until I find something that just really pops all at once. And then I stay with that one, and then I'll finish that one. So that's generally how I like start working. Like I'll come up with either the bass line or the drum beat first, add a rhythm, melody, and then sit back. And if it's moving me to the point where I want to write lyrics to it, then I go ahead and write lyrics to it and then finish that one up. But if it's not moving me, I'll put it to the side. And some days I'll listen to it again and like, you know, just realize, oh, wow, that was really dope. I should revisit this and go back to it. But yeah, just trying to keep it to where I'm not just adding a bunch of stuff to one song and I just be stuck on like one song for like 5 days and not finish it. Like if it's not moving forward, then I like tend to like, you know, just kind of lay back on it and not add to it. And then like you had asked before, just trying to stay with those sort of paradigms of cumbia, Tejano, orquesta, but really anything that falls into the scope of like historic Chicano music, like looking to that as for influence.
Okay, so then like more or less like your creative process has like stayed like the same, like so you try to keep it like that way for like every like song you
pretty much. But I will say for Vivir it was a bit different because I didn't do the beats on that album. Adrian Quesada did them from Black Pumas, Grupo Fantasma. He's been in a number of groups. Rockstar. And the time that he was finishing up Vivir, he was also going on tour with Black Pumas. They were not nominated for a Grammy. I mean, this super big rock star. He was already a rock star, but during that time, that era, he just really blew up. So I was just really fortunate to get a chance to work with him during that time and get his feedback, have these conversations with him that I think have been really helpful now and in the future, I think.
Yeah, and like you've even like collaborated with not only like musicians, but they're also like kind of like you, they're musicians as well as educators. So what has that been like?
Yeah, so that I think has just been a really rewarding aspect of my life and something that I didn't see coming when I was younger, when I was you know, working on my degree. I'd wanted to be a writer, and I'm still working on that. I mean, that's something that I continue to do is write, you know, fiction, short stories, and working on publishing. That's really the next step. But I felt that working on that would help me become also a better songwriter. So reading, studying literature. So I was an English major all the way up to my PhD, really with a real focus on Mexican American literature and African American literature. And I felt studying poetry, fiction, nonfiction was going to be helpful for my writing career as well as my music that I was doing. And, you know, it was just something I continued to do because I was always doing music throughout my whole school and, you know, starting my academic career. And to be able to have it merge as I was finishing my PhD to where now working on music is actually part of my academic work. That's something that has just become a reality for me at UTSA. It's just been really a dream. It's been really phenomenal how I've been able to connect art with academia, with the academics, with history, with culture. And it makes sense the more research I do, because if we're looking at the history of Mexican American literature, so many argue that the corrido was the first example of a Mexican American, a Chicano literary expression. So it makes a lot of sense that music would be a big part of Chicano studies, Mexican American studies. But balancing it, it can be a challenge as well. Like sort of, okay, what do I focus more of my energy on? And, just trying to use my best judgment when it comes to that.
Yeah. And do you think like a lot of educators, even if they don't like really study the same stuff as you, like, do you think they could really like benefit from like putting like music into like their own like research and their own studies?
Oh, I think so. And I was able to do some teacher workshops. This was around the late, around 2015, 2016, around that time I was doing some music workshops with teachers and talking about ways to incorporate music into the classroom. And a lot of times it was a dialogue. It was me learning, but also me sharing content that I found would be helpful. But yeah, I think that most educators could benefit, whether you're teaching mathematics, history, science, literature. I think that there's all types of ways to incorporate music into your curriculum. And I've just been fortunate to work with some amazing educators, both through my academic work and my artistic work. My group, Third Root, Easy Lee, he's a high school teacher in Atlanta. And, just learning from him and how he's using music in his class has just been really amazing. And then Babu Blakes, he's in Austin, also an educator. And, just an amazing mind. And it's just been very helpful to share ideas and you figure out how to approach educating through music.
Yeah, and I know you don't hide that side of you, your musician side, like from your students and everything. You actually even let them know about like projects that you're working on. Like, have you like actually like going back to what you said? Like, do you actually use your own music like for your curriculum, like when you're like teaching your students?
Yeah, I have. During the times that I'm talking about Black and Brown solidarity, I generally will share my work with Third Root. If I'm talking about histories of colonization, I might share some of my music from Resistir. So yeah, I think the music, my own music, is an important part of my pedagogy and the work that I do in the classroom.
That's really cool. And what do you think listeners, whether they are a student or they're just a regular listener of your music, what do you think that they can take away like from like some of your songs, like, or what would you want them to take away from it?
Yeah,
when they listen to it?
I would hope some awareness of Mexican American history, Chicano history, also some awareness of Black and Brown cultural solidarity, political solidarity, overlap, consciousness, as well as inspiration. You don't necessarily have to be Mexican American, Chicano, or even a person of color, I think, to gain some inspiration from the music. Maybe think about your own, unique histories and how you might be able to relay some of those histories on a song. I think, that's one of the things I'm hoping to inspire. And then I'm just hoping to entertain and get people moving, dancing. That's just one of the beautiful things about music is it's able to bring people together and in ways that maybe like a political speech can't or class can't. I think that music has that just amazing ability to bridge people together.
It really can. So, and yeah, I think I do agree. Like, music can help you really like obtain a lot of relevant information, especially with your music. I would listen to it, and like the lyrics are like very clear and everything, and like they like when I was listening to it, like they really blare into my ears. With like I really enjoyed it, and I think with going back to Tejano Summer, like you were making a lot of references to like the south side of San Antonio. Like I even heard like parts of like mentioning Selena Quintanilla, and I'm like, yeah, a lot of us, we do really love her.
Yeah.
So
I'm glad that you picked up on that, because that's definitely what I wanted to do, is bring people back, have people connect to the lyrics of the song. I mean, this is one of the things I feel is very important, is to be really intentional with each line and have some kind of message or create some type of emotion. So So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, of course,
it's
definitely.
great that
And
you're able to
also
inspiration.
with her, like I think like she does like what you did. Well, she did what you do is like blend a lot of different genres together, but also like keep in touch with who she is. So the fact that
Yeah,
you
yeah,
do that.
definitely. I mean, she's an inspiration, someone who has shown, just the various influences in Tejano music, just her use of disco, her use of freestyle, as well as orquesta and different variants of Tejano music to create something so special that it would move the world. So it's just been really a gift to be able to be influenced by her work. And I'm also working with her nephew, Sivane
Really?
Quintanilla Principe Q. Yeah, we've been working on a project too. So there's these connections, these ongoing generational connections that I think are really,
That's really
really
cool.
amazing. Yeah.
And like, have there been like other like as you're blending like different genres like with hip hop and everything? Have you thought about like adding like different other like subgenres or different like genres that are probably like the complete opposite of hip hop or
Yeah,
anything?
I've actually, and it may be sort of a branch connected to hip hop. Maybe part of that hip hop tree. But what I've been working on here for the next year, I want to do another solo album, of course, but I've also have this project called Cervantes, and it's really just a lot of instrumentals, soul music, and a big influence is Santana, like the music of Santana, the rock, instrumental funk, music of that time and the era that I just love. And I'm sitting on a lot of different music, guitars and bass and congas and stuff. Just a lot of unreleased music that I feel I want to bridge together and create this project. And it won't be a hip hop project. It'll be more like a funk
Yeah.
project, soul project.
Okay. And then there are, like, I've asked this with other musicians before, and I know with your music, you always try to have a strong message that you hope, like, your listeners will be able to, like, hear clearly. What if, like, when they do hear it, they kind of, like, take it in a different direction? Like, would you, like, be okay with that, or?
I guess it depends on the direction.
Uh-huh.
I'd hate anybody to maybe misconstrue anything I'm saying as a call for any type of violence, because that's
Oh,
never
yes.
anything that I would support or call for.
Mm-hmm.
But if they're taking, what I'm doing and wanting to sort of recreate their
Mm-hmm.
art or wanting to create their art and incorporate a lot of history and culture within their art,
Yeah.
consciousness, maybe spreading messages. I think that's great.
Yeah, no, yeah, because art can be subjective and everything, so
Yeah,
it's really
yeah.
open to interpretation.
Yeah, that can be the tricky part is,
Mhm.
how did you interpret this piece of
Mhm.
art? And, that could be a tricky thing.
That could
for
probably
sure.
be something you could talk to your students about that too. Like,
Yeah.
what did you think of this song?
Yeah.
No pressure, but I wrote it.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Yeah, yeah.
so that could be interesting. And then
Yeah.
going back to your writing as well, because I know you said you wanted to be a writer before anything else.
Hmm.
Have you ever like? Would you think your writing is it similar to like when you do your songwriting? Like, does it like follow like themes like that or like,
Yeah,
similar?
yeah. A lot of history, a lot of writing about identity, and just the complexities of being a human as well. I
Definitely
think
be very
on one
complex.
hand, maybe somebody from a background, a Latino background, could relate, but then I think that there's also universal themes that I like to write about that everyone, would be able to relate to. Just the difficulties of growing up through your adolescence, or the difficulties of what happens when you turn 18 and it's time to like start thinking about what you'll do next, or even graduating college and what happens with that, or some of the challenges you might have within the institution. So that's some of the things I've been writing about here lately, and
Okay.
yeah, so I'm hoping to get some of that work done in the next couple years, where book and also film too. I'm trying to get some screenwriting done as
Really?
well. So
That's
that's
cool.
kind of what I see in the next
Okay.
sort of few years.
Yeah, so going back to what you said, like how a lot of it now it's like going like what's your next step after you graduate and like being 18, like so that's very related to like being in college and
Yeah.
everything. So then like really like your education background, it's like a big influence like on your music, is it?
Yeah.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that I can't sort of stray too far from, because it's such a big part of my life. I think that's just what I spend most of my days doing. If I'm not prepping for class, I'm reading. or I'm writing, or I'm putting music together. But if I'm not putting music together, I'm back reading, writing, giving talks, going to conferences, talking to other people who are doing work, whether it's in the community or within academia. And, what do I do with all this information? I feel, the art has to come out through the art. It's just, I feel it's important. And maybe not everybody thinks this, but when you're creating, take from your own life experiences. What have you gone through over the past week or the past day, and how can you incorporate that into your art? And because my life has just been one that has been filled with a lot of lectures, a lot of reading, just a lot of learning, being better, I feel like that comes across in my music.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's really great. No, like really education is definitely very important. So the fact that you put that into your music, I really think that's
and
one
thing I want to add is that I also feel like not everyone has the privilege to walk, within the halls of the institution and go to college. And what's one of the cool things I think about doing shows is I'm able to reach a public that may not ever have been in a college classroom. And I feel like that's critical. It's so important because there's so much genius out there, so many people to inspire us, and so much energy to get from the community in that way. And it's really cool teaching classes and working with students. I think that's so important, so key to helping improve the society we live in. But something about doing those community shows and being with people who may not ever had the sort of opportunities to go to college, for whatever reason. I know people are facing different circumstances. So that's one of the rewards and one of the feelings that I get of a satisfaction with the art that I'm doing, because I'm able to connect with people who can learn from me, but I can learn from them as well. I'm watching their shows, or I'm having conversations with them about their art after the shows.
So then even even if you're not a student or anything, you can still learn a lot just from listening to your music, I guess you could say.
That's what I try to do, and it's a tough line to walk, because I want to be entertaining, like I said earlier before. So I don't want to just, if I'm just dropping history lessons, then that can be kind of also like, okay, I don't know if I can listen to this. So how do I sort of, create that, create the music towards aesthetically pleasing, but then also have that educational component. But yeah, I definitely would like people to sort of walk away with a little bit more consciousness, maybe some history, walk away with something they didn't know before.
Would you say, in your opinion, your music has so far been aesthetically pleasing as well as, informative?
I hope so. I mean, at least to me. I know it's all subjective, and I know not everyone is going to like my music. I'm not going to be everybody's cup of tea. I know that. I mean, that's just how music is. It's for some people and maybe not for some other people, but I feel like I've been able to create music that has been able to entertain, people that I've come across, and been able to do some amazing shows, work, on stage with some of my dream artists. I mean, we've been able to open up for KRS-One, Dead Prez. I'm trying to think who else, The Coup, just these artists that have really been influential to me. So doing shows like that, as well as getting feedback from the audience, makes me feel like, okay, I'm doing something right for some people, at least a percentage of people. But yeah, I'd like to think that I'm doing music that's pleasing to some.
Okay. And I know you also have some stuff going on that's coming up. I know you're going to be one of the keynote speakers of a conference coming up in Chicago, I think, if I read that correctly.
Yeah, the National Latino Association of Psychologists. So I'll be giving a keynote on what hip hop has meant to me, healing that I've gone through by hip hop, by listening to hip hop, performing hip hop, and really just talking about how music has helped me through difficult times, and can be used as a form of mental healing, mental wellness. So that's some of the things I'm going to be talking about, and the importance of talking about history within music as well.
Are you going to be performing as well?
Yeah, so I will be playing a show after that, so I'm going to be setting that up as well. So that'll be cool, to be able to talk about what music meant to me, and then, taking some time to set up and do the event later on that evening. And that's going to be in Chicago, so that'll be cool to go back there and talk to some folks and then collaborate. I mean, it's my first time actually being part of a psychology conference. And I hadn't really been doing the work I'm doing now on psychology, few years back I wasn't, but here recently it's just kind of all worked out, I think, in a really amazing ways. I've been looking at hip hop and healing, and what hip hop means to me, and how can we use music as a form of of therapy and of wellness.
Okay. Do you perform like in every conference that you're normally a part of?
Not all of them. Only if it's an invite for performing. I would say about half of them I do, half of them I don't. I mean, I'm going to be presenting at the National Association for Chicano Studies next year, and I've presented at that conference before, and I've never performed. So it depends on the conference and what I'm talking about. But yeah, it's kind of half and half.
All right, and I think I just have one more thing to ask. Like, if there's actually absolutely one thing you want, like, people to take from your music, and you can like pretty much like be like if you decide, like, if you just die tomorrow and everything, like, what can be like thing like, okay, like I left my legacy and stuff because this, like, what would be like that one thing with. I think I'd stuttered out my words. I hope you understood what I meant.
Yeah, great question. I feel like I would like people to feel empowered. And that could be in a variety of ways. And like I said before, you don't necessarily have to be Chicano, Latino, Mexican American, I think, to connect with the music that I'm doing. But I think in different ways, if someone can walk away feeling empowered, maybe ready to take on the new day, because life can be hard. It can be hard sometimes to just get up and do what you do, and I'd like to think that my music, someone can put on and be able to be inspired to just work another day. Go to the gym, because I've heard that a lot as well. It's like I've been listening to your music in the gym. So that's really what I'd like. The main sort of thing people to take away from the music is to feel a sense of empowered, to just feel that energy and be able to just move on and pursue your goals. Be respectful to others and try to improve the world that we live in. And that's really what I'm trying to do.
As long as they feel empowered. Yes.
Really,
Thank
at the same time.
Well, thank you so much for stopping by the studio. I really love talking to you and hearing about all this information. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate y'all having me.
Yes. Don't forget, guys, this has been MexStep. Check out his Instagram. The Instagram is MexStep, right? It's MEXSTEP. And he does have a website. It's MexStepMusic.com.
MexStepMusic.com.
Yes. And if you're in the Chicago area, feel free to. Is it open to the public, the keynote thing?
Yeah. You'll be able to check it out October 27th, I believe. But hit up my.
And
socials.
his music is available on Spotify and Apple Music, and then you're on YouTube as well.
YouTube, all the outlets.
Yes, like his two albums is Resistir and Vivir. They are really great. I definitely recommend them. So yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, and once again, this has been Culture Corner, and I've been Terry. This has been Marcos Cervantes, aka MexStep, and hope to see you guys next time. Stay creative. Bye.